Hello, this is Steve Ramona, your host for Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I want to thank our sponsors, Infone, and with Infone, you can place your business on everybody's cell phone, turn their business into a web app, and with a click of a button, they'll have access to you 24/7. And also Pantheon.fm. Have you ever thought about monetizing and taking your podcast to the next level? Well, Pantheon can do that. Let us show you how. Reach out to Steve Ramona, the host, at infone.co/SR1, and I will go over with you how you can make your podcast really stand out. Let's enjoy the show. Thanks again, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I'm really fired up. This might get emotional, but it's going to be a show that I've just met him in the green room today, and my heart's pumping. I'm excited for you to hear about this, what this guest has done, what he's been through, but where he's at now, which is so awesome. Maurizio, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get into it. Your first breaths as a baby. Start with that story.
Sure. So when I was a little guy, I was pretty sick. And they obviously they keep you at the hospital, right? Make sure you're okay, but I wasn't. And my mother would come visit at the hospital, and I was always sleeping. And the nurse pulled her to the side and said, "Look, your son's going to die. He's not doing well. They give him drugs every time they know you're coming, which is why he's sleeping. So you're better off signing him out. At least he can die in your arms when you take him home." And that's exactly what my mom did. She signed me out on the way home. So we lived in Rome, Italy, right? We were about 10 minutes from the Colosseum. You got to go through the main area to get to our place. Stop breathing on her, right? I'm out. I'm blue, purple, whatever that is. So she's 21 years old, right? My brother Robert was born first. I come second, 2 years later. And she throws me up in the air. I come back, right? I do that to my mother 4 times. Right. So she's, you can imagine, I can't imagine your son, dead. Right. So I do that to her 4 times. She gets me home. They put me in a room. She calls a doctor who's in Paris, France. He flies in, and they basically quarantine the room. You got the plastic around everything. This is back in 1969. Right. So, you're lucky, whatever. So little by little, I started coming around. It was all wrinkly, not good. They flew my grandfather in from Sicily. So we're in Rome. He's in Sicily, right? Old school. And he comes into the room, and this is the story told to me by my mother and my aunt, right? So my mother and her sister are praying.
Take your time.
And my grandfather says, this guy, he's going to make his way. He's a lion. He ain't going down. He's seen death 4 times. You're not going to do anything to this kid. The road that he has ahead of him is going to be whatever it is, but he's not going to fear anything. And that story is what my mother used to say to me when I was, not, banged up, football team, soccer team, whatever it was, too slow, too this, too that. And I use that as motivation all the time. You can't kill a lion that doesn't know how to die. So, as I, obviously you come to this country, life's a little different, right? Everything's different. I don't speak your language. All my toys are over there. All my cousins are over there. All my friends over there. And you start over, but you don't remember a lot of what you're supposed to do because you're with a completely different culture. The football, we don't have that stuff where I came from, right? It's a soccer ball. So, you use that, story, you use that inspiration, motivation. And I've told this story probably, as I shared with you earlier, maybe 11 or 12 times. And probably half of that was with people that were broken, where there was definite fear I was not going to see them again. And my point to them was, look, man, I know what you might be thinking. And I know what you might be thinking about doing, but stay on the phone. Let me tell you a story. And all 5 of them are still with us.
Amen.
So I use this story, and I don't share it. And I'm sure now that the whole world is going to know this personal part of me. But I think it's very important because when you think about the worst of circumstances, you're in this like ditch, you're in a dark place, whatever. And then you think about coming around 4 times, right? You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. And you do. No one's going to take it away. You're not stopping, right? We're going to go forward. We're going to keep going, knock them down one at a time. My career has been highs and lows. You work for great companies, job eliminated, right? You walk into people's lives, you understand good and bad. You walk in and meet some really great people, and then you bump into some demons, but you still knock them down, right? You keep going. So, it's a story I don't tell often, but you got it out of me today, and I thank you for it.
I appreciate you and thank you for sharing it. It's you're getting me now too. It sounds like the lesson that you learn is never give up.
I mean, there's things that are going to happen to you, and then there's things that you're going to do to yourself. You can manage you can't manage other stuff, but the one thing you can absolutely manage is you have to be tenacious. You got to be, you got to have an appetite, because no one's going to give you anything.
No.
Most people are used to people taking stuff away, right? So
Yeah.
you keep going forward.
What would you tell a listener that's broken and hearing our show right now, and you were standing in front of them? What would you tell them?
I would tell them I hear you. Then I would make sure I sit with them, and I would listen with my ears, and I would hear with my heart. And I would thank them for sharing their heart with me as they tell me the pain they're feeling. And I would tell them the story. And I would let them know that it is going to be okay, because every single catastrophic event has an expiration date. And as long as you can take a deep breath and know that there's a good group of human beings around you, right? Because good people gravitate to one another, then they're going to be able to get through this catastrophic event. But they do have expiration dates.
Yeah, that's so well said. And it's not infinite. So that's good. There's going to be a change. So let's pivot to, you come to America as an immigrant. Okay, you've gone through all this as a child. Your mom's gone through this. You survived. You're flourishing. Now you come to America as an immigrant. You came with your mom, I'm assuming, right?
My mother, my brother, my aunt. My mom was divorced when we came here.
Yeah. So what was that like?
That was, it's one of those things where you're too young to understand what the hell is going on, but you're old enough to know that things have been taken away, right? The nuclear family's busted. Luckily, my mom remarried, and the man that raised me is that guy since I was 7. He's the best thing that ever happened to making me the man I am today, right? So he's a beast. He's fantastic. But when we came to this country, let me tell you, there was no English as your second language. There was the traditional words they used for Italians, and fighting was normal, because you could have been you did nothing and you'd get hit. Guinea. We can do this all day, but I won't. So you learn how to handle yourself quickly. Like I went from never using my hands to kind of, you want some of this, right? Like the old school stuff, right? Patterson, New Jersey.
Oh,
St. Anthony's, but Patterson, New Jersey. So, I had friends that were Hispanic, Italian, Black, one family, but when you're Italian and you don't speak the language, it was a nasty chain of events. And sometimes the American Italians would pick on you worse than some of the others. So you learn to handle yourself. And I was really good at school. So my academics were not the issue. I just couldn't speak your language. I crushed it in math. I just had to learn English. And that took me a hot minute. But that was grammar school. Then, you go to Catholic high school. I went to Paramus Catholic Boys High School. Tons of discipline. My entire, tons of this. Same thing, right? Hey, my dad dared me, stepdad, but I call him dad. He dared me to join rec sports. So I walked to the park and I missed the soccer sign on. So the guy goes to me, all we have is football. I'm like, I don't know what, I'm in 7th grade. I don't know what football is. Never understood football. He literally dresses me, puts the pads on me, put everything, because I had no idea what the hell was going on. Right? He's like, this is the uniform. So I walk home. I rang the doorbell. My mother answers, goes, what is this? I said, Baba said that I didn't have the guts to join a team. So all they had was American football. So I'm playing football.
What a great story.
Crazy, right? So I learned how to play American football. I was pretty good at it. I played in high school. I became captain of the team, right? Hey, you're two this, you're two that. At the end, I was pretty strong. And again, I didn't know how to quit. And my teammates were the best because, we weren't monsters. We were a group 4 school, which is in Jersey. It's like a big school. But, nobody went D1. We were all academic nerds. Most of us were like, smart nerds, right? But big muscle guys. So we had a blast, then I went to college. I played in college with a good friend of mine who went to the Marine Corps. He just retired as a colonel.
Nice.
Colonel Lanza, guy's a beast, and then, with work, it was always the same thing. You learn, you go hard, you teach as much as you can, you study, you pay attention to good leaders. I've been taught by great people, even though like the worst coach could be your best teacher. And I've had 2 that were unbelievably scary.
Yeah.
The best.
Well, it's interesting. You called your dad, we'll call him dad, Beast. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
And you're the lion. I can't think of a better match. I don't know if you realize,
you got to meet my mom. You have to meet my mother. She makes us look like teeny tiny pups. She's super strong.
I love it. And now we've talked in the green room, a couple of awards you got and those great gifts. We won't get into that, but you've been successful. Obviously, you got those gifts because you did some great things. What in your early life, being a lion, helped you in business that could help people listening?
Oh man, again, tenacity, but
Yeah.
I think if you handle work the same way you handle, let's call them sensitive events, right? You need to be present. You need to hear with both. Those things, being present, listening with your ears, hearing with your heart. And then the one thing I've shared this often is when you're talking to someone, there's always a conversation inside of the conversation. Most people are afraid to speak. Whoever's heard me say this story knows it really well because it's so important to me. You're sitting across from someone who is either trying to impress you or trying to cut the conversation short because they don't know that that they don't know. Right? So you have insecurities. So people are kind of just talking really fast, selling, and you got to pause it or you let it go because you figured out they are not comfortable, or you stay with them and you let it, you pull and you draw until you realize, that's the problem, right? So I think if you're talking about that question you had, I would say you've got to be able to be present. You've got to be able to hear and listen. You've got to look for that conversation. Those combinations, those variables are part of a solution that delivers success.
Yeah. What's one mistake in business that really taught you a great lesson?
That's a tough
loaded question, I know.
No, you hit me right in the gut with that because I've answered this once before, but I'm gonna so most people are not vulnerable, right? They don't give it up. They're kind of cold, machismo, whether it's male, female. The word machismo to me has no gender. But when you finally are able to be vulnerable and the person takes advantage of you, I've learned that. I've learned the true definition of gullible, right? Because you trust. And sometimes, most people do the trust verify, right? Trust verify. I do trust verify. Because I'd rather have a statue of you that's marble and you break it, you chip it, you destroy it. I'm not going to do it. Right. So I'd rather start when someone's like, yeah, you usually want to build a statue of a person and this and that. I'm like, nope. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're going to be a gorgeous marble statue right here. And everything they do that begins to diminish the value of that and it begins to crumble, it's not because of me. It's because of them. So I think when you're overly gullible, I've learned to settle down with that. When you're, missing the boat by a mile because you were kind of, exposing your soft spot.
Yeah.
You just never think at times that someone's looking for that soft spot so they can put something through it, right? So
yeah.
I've learned to be cautious.
Yeah, and I know the feeling. I love that phrase about vulnerable and trusting. I did all my whole life, and it's amazing being in Italian culture. The Godfather movies, people think about Italians, and it's really all about family, and that's why we're so gullible because they're family until they prove us not to be family.
That's exactly right.
Sometimes they're huge lessons that could be sometimes catastrophic, and we're both here, so it's been great for us.
Yeah.
So I want to do this earlier than later. If somebody's broken out there or knows somebody broken, can they reach out to you?
Of course.
How can they get a hold of you?
They can email me. I'm on LinkedIn. They can email me, maurizio.scrofani@gmail.com. I'm more than happy to make time. And I always tell people, my cell phone. So I have, 11,000 contacts in my cell phone. So if usually I get called about business. Hey, so-and-so, you're a broker in most of your career, right? You're a broker at the end of the day. You're putting businesses together. But there are those conversations where my phone rings and I know it's not good. I've got a couple 2 in the mornings, a couple 1 in the mornings. So I'm available I'm not a psychiatrist, of course, the whole disclaimer stuff, but I'm here to listen. I'm here to help any way I can.
That's the best thing that you just said. Well, you said a lot of good things. I'm here to listen. I think people don't listen enough. We don't shut up and listen, and we need to do more of that in this world. So I'm going to back you up. So the first 5 people that reach out to you and mention my name or the podcast, they're going to get a $20 Amazon gift card because I want to help broken people. I didn't live your story, but the power of this podcast, I can share it and help people. We can do it together. So that's how I can help. So listeners, just reach out to Maurizio, mention Steve Ramona or Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. You heard him, and he'll send me your contact. I just need your email and name, and I'll send you out a $20 Amazon gift card. I did it last week. People were shocked, but sometimes it takes a little push, and that'll be my little push and my contribution. Now that I know you much better and your story, you're a true lion. That is for sure. God, I wish I could meet your grandfather. I'm going off script here with my podcast, but it's reminding me of my grandfather and all that. Yeah. So in business, machismo is like, you got to be machismo. You're the boss. You got so many people underneath you. I'd love to hear your answer to that.
Oh, that's easy. You're not that important. I tell people, you can ask people that have worked for me. I've always reminded them, I'm not that important. Just settle down. No red carpet. I don't want to do these big fancy dinners. Don't worry about picking me up at the airport. Like, let's end all that crap out of the gate. My nails are as dirty underneath when we're shoveling, together, right? True servant leadership, reverse pyramid. If you're true to your soul, then that's exactly how it feels. It'll feel that you can't tell, if I walk in a group, you can't tell who's in charge. And I like that. However, if you pick on one of my people, then you can tell who's in charge, right? That's the only time you'll feel me utilize my authority.
That's why I say the Italian comes out when it comes to me. You miss family and friends.
I'm a dad.
Yeah, there you go. Just being a dad does
I'm
that.
I'm a dad. Listen, your kids are going to make a mistake. Sometimes they need a little coaching. Not everybody's the same. My grandmother used to say, Look at your fingers. They're not all the same. That's exactly how your 5 kids are going to be, right? Every single one is different. You can't treat them all the same. Same thing. You're going to have many people, great leaders that report to you, work with you. They're all going to need something else. So
I love the fingers thing. What a great comment.
she was 4'10". Her name was Rosa, 4'10". And she would say, all now, Italian is there's two halves to me. There's the Spaniard and the Italian, right? But the Italian, the dialect from Southern Italy is so difficult to understand if you're an Italian, that when they go quick, like barese, I'm sorry, I don't understand barese. It's hard. Sicilian is tough. People from Catania, like, we can do this all day, but man, so she would do that in her dialect, and it was interesting.
I can imagine. It's bringing back memories of my Italian family. You Italians out there, you all understand what we're talking about. I am sure. We're American or Italian. Mentoring.
Yes.
You've done a lot. How important is mentoring to you?
So I talk to about 20 to 25 people a month. And some of them have been promoted up the ranks, right? And I still talk to them. Mentoring is something that you know when to do it and when you're not invited. And that happens pretty quick. But interestingly enough, right, when you realize somebody needs help because they're a little bit off the rails, at first they're kind of standoffish. They know everything, you know nothing. And that's normal, right? That's like your kid when they're a teenager. But when they hit in their 20s, they want to hang out with dad. Right?
They want you to buy the beers, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's the same thing. I think, the definition of mentorship to me means a lot of things, but I keep it simple. Someone needs a little help getting through something, and sometimes it lasts a long time and sometimes it doesn't. But it's interesting that it's cyclical, because it'll be a new emotional trait that warrants support to round out the edges. And I wish I had that when I was young, because I did not. There's one person that's been in my professional life since I was 23. His name is Gene. His last name is Gene Smith. I love Gene Smith, right? LP guy. He's been with me since I was 23. So that's 30 years. And he's been my guy, like a second dad. You kind of talk about different things, and he'll hit you between the eyes in a docile way, but he'll hit you between the eyes. And he taught me a lot. He taught me a ton. And when I'm not sure, I go to Gene. Besides my dad, right? My father, I go for everything. My mother, But when it comes to business stuff, work stuff, I call Gene, and he sets me straight.
How important is it to find that mentor?
I think I can't use a word big enough to say how important it is, but let's just say, from 1 to 10, it's a 12, 20, 100.
Yeah.
Because that'll be your consigliere.
Yeah.
He or she, because I have a few people that I lean on. Sometimes, believe it or not, there were 3 awesome, talented women that I work with. And those have been easier at times for me to be vulnerable with and say, here's what I'm thinking about. Like, there's a wonderful woman, her first name is Tracy, and her and I connect really well. We talk about anything, and she's been great, but she's someone that I can absolutely be open heart.
Yeah.
And she still gives it, right between the eyes. So,
amen to that. That's great.
Mentors are huge, but I would use the word like good counsel.
Yeah.
Outside of your priest, your dad, your mom, I would say good counsel on the professional side.
Yeah, that's well said. I'm glad you said that. And it's important. It takes a village. I'll just leave it at that. And you learn that at a very young age with your mom and grandfather flying in, doctor flying, your village. That's why you're here today. Yeah. God bless that. Well, we ran out of time. It went fast. I kind of figured it would with 2 Italians, but thank you for being on. I'm going to reach out to you, have you come back. I think there's more to this we can bring to the audience and listeners. You brought so much great stuff. I really appreciate you a lot. It's funny. I just met you today, but I kind of feel this connection here, and probably because we're Italian, but I'm sure there's other reasons too. But last favor is, what can you give the listeners that you learn? You left a lot of knowledge here, but what's a good tip you can leave them?
It's a great question. I'm going to make sure I put it in a bow. Make sure that when someone is sharing their heart with you, that you're listening with your ears, hearing with your heart. And you said something so important. Americans have a problem that they're waiting to speak instead of listening. And I would say, be a real listener, be present. If you're present, you're open-hearted, you listen with both parts. That's my tip to anybody. You'll have a great life.